Good afternoon, everybody. It's so good to be here. I really want to thank you all for inviting me. And again, thank you for that kind introduction. I hope you've had a very informative morning. Thanks for hanging in here so I could join you this afternoon and share my story, the path that led me to becoming mayor, and share a little bit about what it's like being mayor during a global pandemic. I hope also that I can share just a little bit of what I've learned on my leadership journey with you. But first, I was hoping we can make this as interactive as possible, at least as interactive as we can on Zoom. So please use the chat. I'll try to check it for questions and comments, and I'll certainly have time to go through questions at the end. But I'd love to start with just getting to know a little bit more about you. If you could take a moment to just type in the chat where you're from, where you call home. I had the opportunity to talk to Maury just before this call and understand he is from Everett. So it's great to have an Everett resident here, but love to hear. So lots of folks from Auburn, Seattle, Tacoma, Puyallup. Awesome. Currently in Malaysia. Wow, you've come from a long ways away. Shoreline, Kirkland, great. Thank you very much for sharing. And next, you've all sacrificed a Saturday afternoon to be here to learn about and develop your leadership skills, which is awesome. Thank you. If you could, in just one or two words, I'd like to know what your leadership goal is. Perhaps what skill you think is most important for a leader, or one thing that leaders should have. And you can go ahead and share that in the chat. Let's see. Better communication, that is super important. Empathy. Hashmi organization, definitely. Building mindful leaders. Team engagement, understanding. You guys got it. Self-care. Oh, that's a good one. I'm not very good at that one, but I definitely agree it's a necessary. Developing others. Wonderful. Great. So thank you very much for sharing. I'll start and tell you just a little bit about my leadership journey. And my story begins with just a couple of confessions. First, I really don't like talking about myself, so please bear with me as I attempt to do just that. And second, I never thought I'd be in politics. Growing up, I wasn't at all interested in politics, let alone local government. And I certainly wasn't interested in becoming an elected official. Honestly, I didn't even see myself as a leader. I didn't really consider myself having leadership skills until much later in life, though honestly, I'm very much the same person I've always been. As a kid and young adult, I wanted to make a difference. I was drawn to causes and mission-driven work. I wanted to change the world, help people, save animals, do something that would make a positive impact and make the world a better place. Initially, I thought the way I'd do this was by becoming a therapist. So I went to college and then graduate school with the goal of becoming a family therapist. I was also very poor, so I had to work my way through school. And I actually attended grad school in Germany, where higher education is free. I discovered that when I spent a year overseas in undergraduate school. So I made my way back there upon graduation. And then once accepted into my graduate studies program, I discovered that education in Germany was very hands-on, and a major part of my educational experience was working one-on-one with clients and patients. It was an excellent experience, and I quickly discovered that although I wanted to help people, my strengths were not in the therapeutic process, so I'd have to find another path. I finished my studies and I moved back to the US. And in finding what was next, I found my way into the nonprofit sector as a way to make a difference. I began working in lower level positions in a number of organizations, but I knew I wanted to be capable of doing more. So after a while, I simply began applying for positions in organizations that were aligned with my values, but often positions wildly beyond my experience level. I knew what I wanted to do, and I figured if given the opportunity, I could just do it. So I went for it, and it took some time. And then one day, I finally got a call back from a brand new organization called Northwest Organization for Animal Health. It's up in Stanwood. And they were building their first team and needed a development director. I had almost no experience in fundraising, and I'd never been a director. But I trusted my own strengths. I showed up, I sold myself, I got the job. I don't know how. And I think the first thing I did was gulp, have a panic attack, and I quickly purchased Fundraising for Dummies and whatever other instructional materials I could to figure out how to do this job that I got. But I finally had the opportunity I'd hoped for. So I have a question for all of you. Has there been a time where you just went for it, took something that you felt very unready, underqualified for, and just did it anyway? How'd it go? Share if you could in the chat. A time that you just jumped in woefully unprepared like I did. I don't see any chat yet. I'm just warning the folks here, my computer's trying to restart, so I'm trying to not let it do that, but hopefully, if I go away, it is. Nicole, I know you work here. If you could make your way to the city, that might be good. Okay, so I hear, let's see. Sorry about the tech difficulties. This is part of what our joy is in Zoom calls, right? So I'm trying, it's not working, but okay. So I'll try to get back to what I was saying. So you brought a small business, you've been taking on formal leadership, advertising internship. I'm not hearing how this all went, but I'm sure you guys had a somewhat similar experience to me where you had to figure it out on the go. So I'll jump back into my speech and hopefully we won't have tech challenges. So one lesson I learned early on is that stayed with me to this day is that there's real power in pursuing your passions, aiming high to achieve your dreams. I learned never to underestimate what you're capable of or let the fact that you may not have a specific skill on your resume hold you back. If you want something, you can make it happen. You have to work harder and make up for a lack of knowledge or experience sometimes, but if you're committed and hardworking and you recognize your strengths, you can accomplish a lot. So I dove into my new role at this organization and built a successful fundraising program from the ground up. And then I moved on to raise bigger dollars at Pause, again, working hard, learning fast, and pushing myself as far as I could. I loved it. I enjoyed saving our furry friends. But to do even more meaningful work, I had to leave the animal welfare system and I went into human services when a director position opened up at Cocoon House. For those of you that are unfamiliar with it, Cocoon House is a regional nonprofit based here in Everett, Washington, and they work with at-risk and homeless youth to help them through housing, outreach, and prevention. It was an organization I had admired for years, so the opportunity to work there was truly a dream come true, and I loved the work and seeing the difference we could make. The youth in these programs had experienced so much trauma, but they were also so strong and resilient. And with the support of staff and solid programs, we really could help them succeed. I arrived at the organization, however, in a time of transition, so quickly needed to learn how to lead through change. The organization was growing rapidly, and there were a number of challenges along the way. One led me to quickly becoming the interim CEO when my predecessor suddenly had to step down, and then being appointed permanent CEO shortly thereafter when the organization had challenges on multiple fronts. From funding, I mean hundreds of thousands of dollar holes in the budget, to licensing and compliance, which is terribly important when you're working with minors, to staffing and much more. There was a time, that was a bit of a time of growth and learning for me as a leader, leading through change and transition when the organization was in crisis. That was where I learned how to prioritize, how I can't do it all the time, and when there are multiple challenges coming at you from a variety of fronts, you first must find what you can fix and resolve and let go of what you can't. You're not going to be able to address it all. You fix the urgent issues, find the low-hanging fruit and wins, and definitely build a strong team around you to support and get through the challenges over the long haul. So once we got through that period of instability, I had the opportunity to engage in a period of growth for the organization, a much more positive change to ensure Cocoon House would be there long into the future and help the next generation of young people. Also during my time as CEO of Cocoon House, I had the opportunity to participate in a number of local, regional, and national boards. I can't recommend seizing those types of opportunities enough. In each board or initiative I was a part of, I learned from my fellow board members and I gained more confidence in my own leadership, while also making a positive difference. I remember often feeling, but wait, I'm unworthy. I'm not that important. I'm not capable. Why am I playing this big role? But honestly, I think we all feel that way at times, especially women leaders, that feeling of being an imposter. I'm sure you know that feeling. I'm sure you've had that feeling before. Honestly, since this time, I've learned that most people in leadership can have those feelings. We're never really ready for the next level. And not even just leadership, just life. When are you ever ready? Again, my advice is always just go for it. Back briefly to my path, in 2015, I was invited to participate in the Safe Streets Initiative, which was being led by the City of Everett. Let's see, back in 2015, I was invited to participate in the Safe Streets Initiative, which was being led by the City of Everett. I was a part of a group of local leaders tasked with coming up with ideas and solutions to address some of the complex street level social issues the city was experiencing related to the challenge of homelessness and addiction. The experience of collaborating with these dedicated local leaders to find community solutions was inspiring, and it really opened my eyes to government and how effective government can positively impact the community. That gave me my first light bulb flicker that I could maybe see myself in politics. So even though I wasn't really into politics and I'd never considered elected office, I decided to run for Everett City Council shortly thereafter. I worked incredibly hard as I was running against a 20-year incumbent from a local political family. But after months of hard work, I was successful, and I served on the council just 2 years. I enjoyed that work, but I also realized my strengths lie more in the executive branch of government. So I decided to run for mayor when the current mayor at the time announced that he would be retiring and not running for re-election. Though I hadn't worked for government that long, by this time I did have extensive experience running organizations, overseeing finances, managing large teams of people. So I felt ready for the challenge. In fact, I found my specific experience in the nonprofit sector, it really translated well into local government. In a nonprofit, you're trying to solve problems that are beyond your control with limited resources, and you 100% rely on the public for all those resources. And you need to operate with a high level of integrity, transparency, and accountability. Very good things to bring into government. So after a very competitive campaign and a very close race, I'm really proud of the fact that I'm the first woman to ever be elected mayor in the city of Everett. So that in a nutshell is the story of my leadership journey and how this accidental politician got where I am today. The common threads that I think that stitch it together are believing in yourself, pushing yourself, finding your passion and going for it. And when we worry we're not ready, don't worry about it. Everyone does. But we all have something to contribute. So jump in and make a difference. So next, I wanted to share just a little bit about my job as mayor and especially some reflections of leading during this global pandemic. To start with, just some nuts and bolts about running the city. Every city is a little bit different. In Everett, we have what's considered a strong mayor form of government. In a strong mayor system, mayors are directly elected to office. In a weak mayor form, the mayor role is typically rotates among city council members. With a strong mayor, I'm essentially the CEO of the city. I oversee the daily operations of the city departments. And although the city council has a legislative power, I have the veto power. Everett is a full service city. And so what that means that I'm in charge of is everything. Public works. Public works is our building and infrastructure. It's our streets, our bridges, our roads, our utility. We provide water not only to Everett residents, but it's a regional water utility company. So we provide water far beyond the city of Everett. Public safety is a huge part of what we do, including our fire department, our emergency services, our police. We also have a transit company. Most cities don't, but we have Everett Transit. And so we have our own transit agency that I'm responsible for. Parks, a robust park system, including golf courses, a swim center, a senior center, an animal shelter, along with 52 acres of beautiful parks. A library, community planning and economic development. So planning department is responsible for how city grows. The economic development department is really about assisting new businesses and growing our economy, helping developers grow tourists, bring tourists into the city, and also our arts and events programming. And then our housing team works to ensure we have affordable housing at all price points, as well as looks for opportunities to support those experiencing homelessness in our community. In addition to all of those services, I also oversee all the internal support teams that help us function as a city, everything from finance to purchasing, the clerks, the legal office, IT, HR, communications. I'll have to get back to IT and ask them to restart my computer at more convenient times, but it's a big job. It's a big portfolio and one that has me learning new things every day. That's part of what I love about this job. And I'm also humbled nearly every day by the amazing people we have working for the city. They're skilled, they bring commitment, and they are absolutely dedicated to serving our residents. Since taking office, my priorities have been fiscal responsibility, public safety, and building unity. To begin with, I inherited a major budget deficit, which I've been working to reduce. I had to begin very painful but necessary task of cutting costs to get the city on more stable financial footing. I cut programs, I cut staff, and I bet you can imagine how popular that was. But through those tough decisions and actions, I helped balance our budget and close a deficit gap. This past year, the pandemic has set us back, so we continue to work on to both restore the revenue for the city and put us on a longer-term path towards financial sustainability. Public safety is probably what led me into government and remains a top priority for me. I'm especially focused on reducing gun and gang violence, ensuring positive police reforms and a progressive police department, and finding solutions for street-level social issues in Everett, like cities everywhere, what we face. We've issued several mayoral directives to guide this work, and we're making progress. Building unity and promoting diversity, equity, and inclusion are also important to me. And this past year brought into sharp focus the need we have as a city and a country to do more and do it now to address inequities. Since taking office, I've issued 2 mayoral directives on diversity, equity, and inclusion and hired our first equity manager for the City of Everett. We have much work ahead, but are committed to bringing about the changes we need to make our city more inclusive and a place where everyone has the opportunities to succeed. One of the first things I noted when I came into office was a lack of diversity in our management team, and I immediately went to work creating opportunities to restructure and elevate people so we could have more varied voices in city leadership. This work is ongoing, and we're working to improve our recruitment procedures so that we can attract a workforce that better represents the beautiful diversity in our city. Our vision is an Everett that celebrates, honors, and respects the diversity of cultures, experience, and faiths that we have here. So those are some of the areas I've been focused on, in addition to the core service the city provides. And then, of course, in January 2020, the first known case of COVID in the US was reported right here in the community. And shortly thereafter, we found ourselves with a major public health crisis and a global pandemic. Our city's first responders and healthcare workers were the very first to come in contact with this virus in this country. And as the first leaders to face this, the rest of the country was looking to us, learning from us, as we came together to build a response to this unknown and deadly disease, doing our very best to keep it from spreading too deeply into our community. There's honestly nothing that can prepare you for that type of situation. I remember sitting in my office feeling so overwhelmed and afraid for the health and well-being of our community, and feeling really unsure how best to guide our city through this crisis. And those early days were scary. But I also remember the solidarity I felt with other leaders in our community. We didn't always know what to do, when to do it, how best to do it, but we came together with such a strong desire to serve our community and protect our residents and do our very best to keep everybody safe. I think that's another important leadership tip I'd like to share with you. As a leader, it's okay to not have all the answers. You never do. So surrounding yourself with others you trust, and know that by bringing different voices together, different strengths and skill sets and backgrounds, you can work together to find a path forward. It's especially important in situations like what we've been through this past year and a half. These challenges are not anything any one of us can address on our own. We have to work together towards a common goal for all of our communities. So it's been over a year that we've been on this roller coaster, which has added a whole new layer of complexity to the job of leading a city. We still have to provide all the core services. We still need to focus on fiscal sustainability, public safety, and building unity. And we need to do everything in our power to protect the health and well-being of our community from this pandemic and its emotional toll on our community, while we also gradually recover our economy so that we can continue to care for our residents long into the future. So to close, I wanted you to give a little window into this world, and I thought I'd share a short video that our team put together this past year. So I'm hoping Michelle can bring up that video and we can watch it, and then I'll do some Q&A if that works. Right now.
Things happen here. Everett, 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 Everett. We got coffee, we got beer.
to stay home to fight the spread of the coronavirus. Our team coverage continues with Cairo 7's Michael Spears, who's live in Everett. Michael, you just spoke to the mayor about this new directive.
Thank you, Michelle. So I love that video. Our team does a great job of trying to capture an emotion. And I think the emotions and experiences we had in 2020 were incredible and challenging. And I think that video just did a beautiful job of sharing that with you. So that's my story, and I hope you enjoyed listening to my journey and my small tips in leadership. But I'd love to open it up for any question and answers you might have for me or comments. Alessia asked, how many people in your coalition team? Which coalition team? So working in the city of Everett, we have 1,100 people that work here in the city. So different departments have different numbers. So my mayor's staff is actually quite small. It's just a 3 or 4 people, but across the whole city, it's about 1,100 employees.
I meant the closest, the kind that supports you personally with advices and so.
So, you know, honestly, Nicole Weber, she's on this call, and she's the one who came to my IT rescue here. She is one of my closest sounding boards, plus 2 other top level executives here at the city. So those are the 3 people that I talk to all the time. But I also use the directors of the city, and we have what is called an engagement team. They work across the different departments, and how I see those people are, those are your early adopters and your champions in each department. So one at a more management level, and then one that is somebody in the team of like the public works department that really believes in the mission of what we're doing. And they then are an internal champion for that whole department to bring about the positive changes or reforms that we're trying to push through. And so those two teams together probably make up my coalition, and it's probably about 25 people.
Thank you.
Yeah. What challenged you the most when you were running for mayor? That's a good question. Because I wasn't interested in politics, I really wasn't prepared for politics, and politics can get ugly. I really don't like that. It's probably what's kept me out of politics. People are really mean. People were terribly mean. They were mean to my campaign manager. They were mean to me. And, somebody even made fun of my daughter's name online. And just made these assumptions about who I was as a person. And that really challenged me, like having, recognizing that these folks are lashing out. They don't know me. They don't know what I'm about. And honestly, what I needed to do was to keep doing the right things at the right time for the right reasons. And hopefully these people would either recognize that I'm in it for the right reasons and who I am, or they would just never get on board. And that's okay. My job is to serve the entire community, whether folks like me. I need to do it with the most amount of integrity as possible. But I think that's what challenged me most when I was running for mayor. How do you manage those individuals who do not always align with your ideas and goals? I think that first of all, I like to have a very diverse team. So it's good that people aren't always 100% aligned. You need to have a robust discussion to make sure that you're thinking about all sides of an issue and all perspectives that can make you make a better choice. But I do think once we are set on a mission and we're trying to accomplish something, again, I use those early adopters and those folks that will champion that effort. They can influence other teams for me, and maybe they have the relationships with folks that I don't. But in all honesty, I don't recommend spending all your time trying to win people over who aren't with you. Build a strong team of those that are, and focus your energies on where you can make a change and a positive impact. Let's see, it's gonna, do you have to interact with other mayors, political leaders, with the state on a regular basis? Yes. In fact, during the pandemic, I started calling all the strong mayors together every week so that we could get on board with what each other were doing. I meet with the county weekly right now because of the pandemic. Typically, those meetings would be more like monthly collaborative meetings. But during the crisis that we've been through, it's every week. And then my team meets with the governor's office every week. Early on in the pandemic, I did meet with the governor very frequently, but later it's team to team, and he's been busy. So let's see. What characteristics do you look for when hiring new team members, employees? I definitely look for flexibility and adaptability. That is probably what I look for most. Somebody who is not set in their ways, but that can roll with it, because change is constant and you don't know what's going to hit you. I had no idea that this last year would be what happened. I think having an adaptable team around me helped the city recover through that more successfully. So what advice do you have for someone trying to get a job in public service and stand out in interviews? First of all, please apply. I never thought I would enjoy government work. But I've always believed that you have to be the change you want within an organization. You can't just yell at something from the outside and say it's not working and point fingers. But if you actually want to change something, jump in and do it. And so that's what I've been doing in my role. And I can't encourage you enough to get in there and do it. Public service is way underrated. You don't have to be elected, but please run for office too. That's fantastic. But there's so many different opportunities in government. And so I can't encourage you enough. I think, again, standing out, I always encourage you when you're interviewing for something is to really research the person, the organization, the department that you're going to work for, knowing as much as you can about their recent goals and objectives, where they're going, any challenges they've recently overcome, so that when you can sit down in the interview and say, hey, I just read your directive, Mayor, on X, Y, and Z, then I go, wow, this person is really interested in what we're doing. And that makes you definitely stand out. So let's see, in terms of the DEI work and mission of the city, what is the largest barrier you're facing and how is the city dealing and handling it? You know, one of the barriers that we're facing is that we are a civil service city. Most cities have civil service in the police department and fire department, but we are wall-to-wall civil service. And so to get jobs at the city, there's this very detailed, rigorous application, testing, you know, different steps that you can apply for. And early on as mayor, when I looked at the data around this, we saw that although we had more diverse populations applying for jobs at the city, we had predominantly white populations coming out at the end of this rigorous testing application process. I don't know who wants to fill out a 30-page application to get an entry-level job at a city, right? And so we've been gradually making changes, but because there's just a lot of bureaucracies, there's layers of government, and there's some things that I get to do and some things that then have to go to a civil service commission or a salary commission or the city council. And so every time I think, okay, if I make this change, this will get us on a better path. It's like, wait, but it has to go through 14 approvals first. And so it's been a slog. It's been slow going, but that is one of the barriers of all these government systems. I think the opportunity I then have with my team is to get rid of the unnecessary barriers. It shouldn't be this hard. And so again, adding an equity manager position where we can put that equity lens on every process that we're doing and saying, is this really helping us accomplish our goals? Is this serving everyone in our community equitably? It's helping us tackle that, but that's definitely been one of the largest barriers. So what are the 2 most important leadership traits you look for in others? Let's see, anything that is not something I possess. So I'm a very flawed person, and I certainly have, I don't have all the strengths needed to be successful. So I tend to find people that balance my weaknesses. So I try to think about what I'm good at. I'm usually good at identifying people's strengths. I get to know people quickly. I say, oh, you're good at this, and I'm going to give you more and more of that work that you're good at. And then if folks have gaps, weaknesses in what they're able to do, I hire somebody else to fill those gaps rather than trying to spend all your time fixing somebody's gap. Because I already know, like, I can't fix everything that's broken in me, but I can put people around me that balance me and do things much more successfully than I can. I'm wildly disorganized, for example, and I couldn't possibly do this job without somebody who's incredibly organized standing next to me. So again, I think it's just balancing the strengths and weaknesses of your team to make a full and robust team. So what is the City of Everett's relationship like with the Native American community? Great question. The Tulalip tribes is our closest tribe, and we do have a good relationship with the tribes. I don't think it has always been that case, but we've done some work in the recent last 10 years or so to really strengthen that relationship. We provide water to Tulalip tribes, and I think that process of putting the pipeline there to the tribes was a good step. We work to ensure that when we are making a decision that has any impact on anything that the tribes are very passionate about, our water, our sound, for example, that we are reaching out to the tribes and having those conversations early. But, you know, it is something that is a focus. It's, you know, I think I meet probably twice a year with the chairwoman and the board there. And we do have a liaison from the city council who also works as our tribal liaison to make sure that we're doing everything we can to have a positive relationship. What's it like to have a last name like Franklin? Well, it's awesome, obviously, Marcus. You know, we share the best last name. I don't know how we could have anything else. No, it's a good one. I like it. Great. I don't see any other questions. So yeah, I want to thank you all again for your time. I really enjoyed this. I appreciate you spending the almost hour with me and being patient with my massive IT challenges. But thank you. And thank you, Michelle. Maury, thanks for the background support. And Michelle, thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here and dedicating part of your Saturday, and to everyone dedicating part of their Saturday. That's a big commitment. So I just really thank you for being here today and for all of your good advice on leadership.